First of all, whenever we plan our program or a code, we always use or we always work for situations that are normally expected. We say 2 plus 3 is going to 5, be 5, and our program works very well in these situations. But we all understand that the programs have to deal with errors. Everything has some or the other problem. So the errors are not syntax error, but they are some unexpected conditions which we have not expected, that are actually not part of the normal course or operation plan during coding. So we have certain kind of errors like the out of memory, the file name is invalid, we are attempting to write into a read-only file, getting an incorrect input from the user, division by 0, accessing an out-of-bound list element, and trying to read beyond the end of file, and then sending illegal arguments to a method or the parameters. So if any of this situation is encountered, a good program also will either have a code check for them and perform some suitable action to rectify these problems, or at least stop processing as well-defined way, means graceful degradation after giving you appropriate message, means user should get appropriate message that some problem has occurred. So what we are trying to say here is, if an error is there must be a code written in the program to recover from the error or to handle the error. So in case if it is not possible to handle the error, then it must be reported in some good manner, user-friendly manner to the user. So errors are what? They are exceptional, unusual and unexpected situations, and they are not part of the normal course of a program, normal flow of the program. We need to process to identify and handle them in a very good way. That is, we have to write a good program. And exception handling is the process of responding to these errors or these conditions. And most of the modern programming languages, they provide the exception handling, and they also offer dedicated exception handling mechanism, which will simplify the way in which exception situation is reported and handled. So before going to the exception handling, let's try to understand some of the terms which are associated with it. So when an exception occurs in the program, we say that exception is raised. We will say it is being raised or being thrown, and then we deal with it, and then we say, okay, we have caught the exception or handled the exception, and the code written to handle it is known as the exception handler. So for handling the exceptional situation, Python provides a raise statement, that is to raise the exception in a program, or try and except. This is EXCPT for catching and handling the errors. This raise statement allows the programmer actually to force a specified exception to occur. So once this exception is raised, it's up to the caller function to either handle it using this try or except statement or let it propagate. The syntax for raise is very simple. Raise, this is the exception name and these are the argument. So this raise statement that does not include an exception name will simply re-raise the current exception. This exception name is the type of error. This is the type of error, which can be a string, can be a class, it can be an object, it can be an argument, or the argument is basically optional. Its default value is none, N-O-N-E, and it is used in case the argument is not provided. So let's talk some of the Python's predefined error types, which we can use with the raise statement. And this does not mean that raise can't be used to raise user defined errors. It can be used for this also. First is IO error. This input output error is raised when IO input output operator fails, like the file not found, disk is full. EOF error. This is raised when one of the file method like the read line or read lines tried to read beyond the file, end of the file. Zero division error. When you have like this, division operation denominator is 0, Import error. This is raised when the import statement fails to find the module definition or the file name. Index error. This is raised when in a sequence index subscript is out of range. It is not in the range. Name error. This is raised when a local or a global name is not found. Indentation error. This is raised for incorrect indentation or the formatting. Type error. This is raised when we try to perform an operation on incorrect type of value. Value error. This is raised when a built-in function or a method receives an argument of correct type but with inappropriate value. For example, if we have this list 1, 2, 3, I equal to 5, and you want to check I greater than length L. So this length is what? 3. I is 5. 5 is greater than 3. We raise index error. Right? Why? Because as the value assigned to it this I is 5. And now the code will raise an error during execution. The error will be an actually index error as this mentioned in the raise statement. Now let's see an example of raise when the user defined error type is there. That is, you defined your function, say menu, you give a choice. If choice is less than 1, you raise something like invalid choice, and you can just print choice also. So in order to handle the errors raised by the statement, we can use the try except statement. So this try except is used when we think that the code might fail. We're understanding that sometimes zero division may come. So why not to put it inside try except? If this happens, then we are able to catch it and handle same in some proper fashion. So let us consider this menu function defined about to handle the error also. So we are putting it in this try inside. We are making while true. We are inputting the number, changing into the integer, giving it to x. Break except value error. This was not a valid number. Enter a valid number. So if a user happens to place a value x which is invalid, so this code will ask user to input a value until a valid integer value is entered. How this try and except work? Once a while loop is entered, execution of try clause begins. If no error is encountered, that is the value entered is integer valid, except clause will be skipped. This will be skipped and execution of try finishes. Right? If an exception occurs, that is an integer value which is not entered, then rest of try clause is skipped. This is skipped and it will go to except. It will go to rest is skipped and except clause or cause is executed. So this is the syntax of try except statement. Statement after try which might go wrong, except an error type statement should be executed if at all this error happens. Then some error type 2 also you can give. If error type 2 happens, what to do? Then last you say else statement to be executed if no exception occurs. Then you say finally. This is the last one. This is statements to be executed, and you must remember error type can be used user defined also. So you can see single try statement can have multiple except statements, and this may be required if you want to handle more than one type of errors in single piece of code. So in multiple except clause, a search for except is taken up. Once a match is found, that is executed, and you will not specify any error type in the exception clause. If that is done, it is to catch all exceptions, and these exceptions should be listed as last clause in your try block. This else clause written after all the except statement is executed if code in try block does not raise any sort of exception. This finally clause is always executed before leaving the try statement, irrespective of exception occurred or not. It is also executed if during execution of try and except statement any of the clause is left via this break. So continue or return. This will be really be executed. So in try statement, the block of code written in try is main action, which is a main action statement. Except clause defines the handlers for exception, which is raised during execution of some main statement, these statements. Else, if written, this provides a handler to be run if no exception occurs. And finally, is just to provide cleanup actions. We have example using user defined exception, which was created in raise statement. So let us see. Try. You have statements. Except invalid choice. Then you handle this exception, else rest of the code. So the example of except clause without error type, you just say try x equal to y, and then except print y is not defined. So this example code having except, else and finally clause can be written as this is a definition or a function divide try. Then result equal to x is equal to y, except if zero division error occurs, you just print division by 0, else you say result is this. Finally will be printed execution close or finally clause. Now let us apply exception handling in a data file. We'll write it here, try. This is opening of test file. This is a data file, or we have to do or perform the input output exception. So test file, this fh.write, this is my test file for exception handling. You make a except IO error. Then you print error can't find file or read data. Otherwise, return content in the file successfully. So this is going to provide the result if you are not allowed to write in the file this one. This error can't find file or read data. Another example of error handling in the data file will be like this. You can make an empty list. You can open your files, any pickle file in read mode, and then while one, you try to append. What append? Pick.load with whatever there is in file you want to load in the list, and then you say exception EOF file error break, then you close the file. So this will allow us to read data from file containing many lists, a list at a time.